What if the one you're destined to love is the one you're fated to destroy? In the city of Valaris Prime, where magic bleeds through the air and ancient gods sleep beneath the ruins, a grieving siren with a forgotten legacy will be forced to reopen a case that nearly broke her. 2 years ago, her best friend was murdered in a ritual no one dared to explain. Now, someone is killing again, and she's the only one who can stop it. But this time, she won't face it alone. Assigned to protect her is a fallen angel, cold, cursed, and hiding truths that could unravel everything. Together, they will uncover secrets buried beneath centuries of silence and fall for each other in the one way they can't afford. If you're ready to feel every heartbeat, every betrayal, every impossible kiss, hit subscribe and let the story begin. The blade trembled in Lyra's hand as she knelt over the body. Same rune, same wound, same horror. Valaris Prime never slept, but some corners of it were better left untouched. The alley was soaked in fog and starlight, and something far older than fear. Blood still clung to the cobblestones, and above it, etched into skin, was a rune that hadn't been seen in 2 years. Not since Calith. Lyra stared at it, the breath stolen from her lungs. No, not again. Her voice cracked, memory flooding back like cold ocean water. Step away, a low voice commanded behind her. She turned. A man in dark armor stood at the edge of the scene, his black wings folded, his silver gaze unreadable. Riven Darien, the Celestial Order's blade. Her new bodyguard. You don't belong here. I never did, Lyra whispered. The demon exploded from the shadows, a thing of bone and smoke, and something older still. Tension crackled between Lyra and Riven as they left the alley, neither speaking. But then, the world broke open. A shriek from the dark, a pulse of shadow, and suddenly they were under attack. A demon, its form shifting like ash in wind, charged them. Riven moved like lightning, sword igniting, wings snapping wide. Steel and fire met claws and smoke. But it wasn't enough. Lyra stepped forward, heart hammering, and sang. It wasn't a melody. It was ancient, raw, a language of blood and water. The demon froze mid-lunge. Just for a second. It was enough. Riven sliced it clean through. He turned, stunned. What did you just do? I don't know. I shouldn't be able to. She touched her throat. It still vibrated. What's happening to me? She thought, her fingers trembling. It had been buried for years. A gift, a warning, a memory shaped in light. That night, Lyra couldn't sleep. The apartment felt too still, too haunted. She reached for the bracelet Calith gave her the night before she died, something she hadn't worn since. But tonight, something called her to it. As soon as her fingers touched the crystal embedded in it, light surged. A projection bloomed in the air, flickering, unstable. Calith appeared. If you're seeing this, I didn't make it. Go to the Tower of Dawn. And Lyra, don't trust anyone, not even the Order. The vision vanished. Lyra sat frozen, every breath shallow. She felt it deep in her gut. Calith hadn't just died. She'd planned for this. Someone had betrayed her. Riven entered the room silently. What was that? She left me a message. That tower's sealed. Off limits. Not anymore. The wind dragged whispers across the stone, as if the tower itself remembered blood. The journey to the tower was long, but not hard. The path seemed cleared for her. The trees parted. The mist stilled. The wards cracked, as if the magic of the place recognized her. The Tower of Dawn rose like a broken spine against the sky, ancient, veiled in runes that flickered when touched. Inside, mirrors hung shattered along the walls, each one whispering echoes of the past. One showed Lyra and Calith laughing beneath moonlight. Another, Riven, younger, wings white, standing before a celestial tribunal. You were an executioner, he nodded once, until I refused to kill a witch, my sister. Lyra's voice softened. And what happens if you have to choose again? Then, one mirror pulsed. Calith appeared, speaking to a shadowed figure with wings, and a scar on his neck, identical to Riven's. Pain bloomed in her chest like wildfire. The rune was no longer dormant. It was alive. Lyra collapsed in the tower. Her skin burned as ancient magic branded itself into her. the same symbol that marred Riven's shoulder, but hers was changing, growing. When she woke, he was there, watching. It's a soul mark. Forbidden. It links two beings across lifetimes. Did you do this to me? No. His voice cracked. This is older than both of us. Lyra's hand shook. Is this what she was hiding from me? Riven didn't answer. He only looked at her like she might be the weapon, or the salvation. She stood slowly. Then I need to know everything. Now. The morgue was cold. Too cold even for the dead. Lyra's boots echoed across the tiled floor as she approached the draped table, her heartbeat thudding like war drums in her chest. Riven was already there, arms crossed, expression unreadable. The coroner had called him first. Probably thought the order would want to handle a case like this discreetly. And they would. Because what lay under that sheet should not exist. The moment the sheet was pulled back, every breath left her body. The woman lying on the table had her face, her hair, even the mole beneath her left eye, the one she always hated. The resemblance was exact, down to the faint scar on her temple from when she'd fallen as a child. Lyra stumbled back, bile rising in her throat. This is some kind of illusion. It's not, Riven interrupted. I scanned her essence. It's yours. She froze. What the hell does that mean? He stepped closer, voice lower now. It means someone created this, or summoned it. Either way, this isn't just mimicry. It's duplication, which means someone has access to your blood, or your soul. The last word hung in the air like smoke. It wasn't a word you used lightly. Soul. It implied a deeper kind of magic, one that left permanent marks, one that could not be undone. Lyra gripped the edge of the autopsy table, trying to ground herself. If someone's copying me, it means they know everything. My movements, my thoughts, my powers, maybe even my feelings. The thought turned her stomach. She felt violated, haunted, and worst of all, terrified. Because the clone wasn't the only thing that had changed. Her own powers had been growing, shifting. The soul mark on her chest had begun to ache when she slept, like something inside was stirring. Then, Riven whispered something he hadn't dared say before. This might be a failed vessel. She blinked at him. For what? He didn't answer, but she saw it in his eyes. Whatever was coming, it needed her, or something wearing her face, and it was getting closer. The Oracle's temple was buried beneath the city, not by accident, but by ancient design. Lyra and Riven descended through catacombs thick with incense and echoes, where the air buzzed with arcane vibrations and whispered voices of offerings long forgotten. The Oracle herself was blind, bound to the temple by a curse older than any religion still practiced in Valaris. But her visions were untouched by time, and her voice, though cracked, carried truth that no magic dared silence. They entered a chamber where time seemed to bend. Silver threads floated in the air like spider silk, and runes glowed softly along the marble floor. The Oracle sat in the center, unmoving. Her eyes were pale like glass, milky and empty. But when Lyra stepped into her circle, those eyes turned, not to her, but into her. You carry the song of the rift, the Oracle whispered. The first note, unfinished. The last, cursed. Lyra felt the ground sway beneath her feet. Riven stepped forward, but the Oracle silenced him with a hand. 2 paths entwine in your veins, she continued. One bound by love, the other by sacrifice. If you sing, the veil shatters. If you silence it, the world burns slower. Lyra barely breathed. The room pulsed with pressure. Then the Oracle leaned closer, her lips barely moving. He was meant to kill you, but he already chose not to once. That is why your souls burned together. Riven tensed. Enough. Lyra tried to speak, but the air was too thick. Her heart ached with the weight of words unsaid. He was meant to kill me. Then why did I feel safe with him? She stared at Riven. He looked away. The Oracle turned back to her stone dais, whispering an old lullaby in a language Lyra somehow recognized. A song from her childhood. A song Calith used to hum. Before they left, the Oracle said one last thing. Beware the mirror that sings. And Lyra knew. The next answer she needed would not be in words, but in music. The entrance to the House of Serpents was a nightclub hidden in plain sight, built into the ruins of an ancient temple, masked by illusions and drenched in pheromantic magic. Inside, bass pulsed like a heartbeat, and the crowd moved as if possessed. Every surface shimmered. Every corner hid a secret. And at its center sat one of Calith's old contacts, a warlock named Thorn, with venom in his smile and blood on his tongue. Lyra moved like she belonged there, hips swaying, eyes calculating. Riven trailed behind her like a shadow, always a breath too close. She hated how aware she was of him in this place, hated more that his presence made her feel safer. But she had to stay sharp. Thorn wasn't loyal to anyone but his own hunger. Calith knew she was being hunted, he said, leaning across the table. She came here days before she died, said something was trying to possess her through the songs. Possess? Lyra's voice shook. She never told me that. Thorn raised a brow. Didn't she? He tossed a glowing coin on the table. It pulsed with Calith's magical signature, but distorted, like it had been twisted. Lyra touched it, and a rush of emotions slammed into her. Fear, love, regret, betrayal. Calith had known she was being followed. And worse, she had suspected someone close, someone magical, someone with wings. After the meeting, Riven stopped her outside the club. You think it was me? She hesitated. I think you know more than you say. He stepped in, eyes dark. I'd die before I'd hurt you, but I'd kill to keep you from knowing some truths. Lyra didn't sleep that night, because in the memory she felt from Calith, there had been one overwhelming emotion that made her blood run cold. Resignation, like Calith had chosen her death. Deep in the forgotten woods, hidden from the Order's eyes, lived Isenna, a moon priestess, and the last living guardian of the Canticum, the primal song magic Lyra had unknowingly awakened. Her cottage was made of roots and bones, and the air around it buzzed with raw, untamed power. Lyra stepped inside and immediately felt her skin prickle, like the magic here recognized her. Isenna was stern, weathered by centuries, and her silver eyes held no pity. You carry a song that should have died with the gods, she said without preamble. And now it's singing again, through your blood. Lyra listened as Isenna explained the truth. Calith had been part of a secret line of Moonborn, gifted with the ability to awaken the veil through voice. Lyra, unknowingly, had inherited this gift through a pact made before she was born, a pact bound to a celestial soul. Riven, his soul. The implications shook her. I was chosen before I had a name, she whispered, tied to a man I didn't even know existed. Not just a man, Isenna said. An executioner who refused to execute. His defiance sealed your fate, and hers. Training began. Isenna made Lyra sing until her throat bled, until the forest trembled. With every note, she saw visions. Calith behind bars of light, Riven before the Order, herself, drowning, burning, rising. The song wasn't just power, it was memory and truth. It began with a single note, one Lyra sang in her sleep, unaware. But the world heard it. The veil trembled, and in a temple far away, something woke up. That day, a portal tore open in the center of Valaris Prime. Silent, luminous, wrong. From its center spilled shadows, not creatures, memories, echoes, whispers of events that never happened, or hadn't happened yet. The city panicked, the Order scrambled, and Lyra felt it in her chest. It's responding to me, she said, watching the portal pulse. No, Riven said. It's calling you. They stood before it, and for a moment, she saw something on the other side, a prison of mirrors, and inside, Calith, alive, crying, singing. Lyra stepped forward. If I go in, I might not come back. If you don't, you'll never know why she died. She looked at him. Will you follow? He didn't answer with words, just a step forward beside her. They crossed the threshold together. The veil swallowed them whole. The veil was not a place. It was a memory given shape. The air shimmered with images that moved and breathed like ghosts of things that never were. Lyra and Riven stepped into a realm where the rules of time had fractured, and the truth walked naked in the open. The sky was a mirrored dome, showing fragments of their lives out of order. The earth beneath their feet sang in Calith's voice, and the silence that followed each note felt like a warning. Lyra moved slowly, almost reverently, as visions of her childhood danced through the air. She saw Kayleith carrying her across flooded streets, saw Riven, wings still whole, kneeling before a judge of light. She turned to him. "You didn't just refuse to kill a witch." He nodded once. "I chose to love one." She swallowed hard. "Kayleith?" "No," he said, his voice hoarse. "Someone else. Someone who didn't make it out." The truth shattered something between them, or maybe reforged it. Lyra walked forward, feet touching stones that shimmered like moonlight. The veil showed her Kayleith's final memory, not of fear, but of choice. She had offered herself, not just to protect Lyra, but to anchor something inside her, a seed of a god. The song wasn't a weapon, it was a lock, and Lyra, the key. Riven was shaking. He hadn't spoken in minutes. She turned. His eyes were glazed, filled with visions only he could see. "They told me if I let you live, the world would suffer. Do you still believe them?" His voice cracked. "I don't know what to believe, except I can't lose you. Not again." She stepped closer, voice quiet as starlight, then stopped choosing the world. Kayleith stood atop an obsidian dais, her body glowing with runes carved into flesh. Her song shook the veil, and every note she sang unraveled more of the sky. She didn't look at Lyra, didn't smile, didn't cry. She just sang. Her eyes were blank, empty, possessed. Lyra ran to her, but an invisible wall of sound knocked her flat. Riven caught her just before she hit the ground, blood trickling from her ears. "She's not in control," Lyra gasped. "They're using her." Riven's jaw tightened. "She's the conduit." The being within Kayleith wasn't her anymore. It was Anacreon, the god of dissonance, feeding off grief, off love, feeding off them. There was only one way to stop it. Lyra had to sing a counter-harmony, but to do so, she would need to connect fully to the song, to open the part of her soul still sealed by the pact with Riven. It meant breaking the bond, or completing it. "If we do this," she said, "you'll feel what I feel. All of it." Riven looked at her, eyes blazing. "Then don't hold back." They kissed like the world was ending. Maybe it was. In that moment, the veil shook violently, not from the gods, but from two mortal beings choosing each other over fate. Lyra began to sing, and Riven matched her, not with melody, but with silence. His body anchored her to the earth while her voice pulled down the stars. The song exploded, not in sound, but in memory. Lyra dropped to her knees as visions flooded her. Lifetimes, wars, other versions of herself, burning, breaking, rising. Anacreon had touched her blood long before she was born. She hadn't just inherited a gift. She was the vessel, always had been. Kayleith had tried to change that, and failed. Riven held her as she writhed, her skin glowing like moonstone. "Let me take it," he begged, but she shook her head. "You'll die. Then I'll die loving you. That's more than most ever get." She sobbed, shaking. "No, not like this." The ground beneath them split open. They stood at the edge of a chasm. At the bottom, the rift, a swirling core of energy, where magic was born and gods were buried. The veil demanded a sacrifice to close. Riven stepped forward. Lyra grabbed him. "If you take my place, you become what they fear. Another god, another weapon." He turned to her, voice soft. "Then let them be afraid." But Lyra wasn't ready to let him go. Not now. Not when she had finally let herself love him. She pressed her forehead to his, eyes wild. "There's another way." The fusion song was raw, jagged, and imperfect, but it was theirs. Lyra's voice cracked on every note, her soul pouring into every syllable. Riven's light bled from his hands into hers, anchoring her even as the rift howled. Together, they weren't sealing it. They were rewriting it. The rift pushed back. Shadows rose, Kayleith's memories, twisted and sharpened, lashing out at them like thorns. Lyra screamed. Riven held her steady. They sang through it, together. Every heartbreak, every failure, every stolen kiss. The veil didn't want to let go, but they did not stop. Then, silence, utter and complete. The rift collapsed in on itself, the light folding like origami into a single point, then gone. Lyra fell. Riven caught her, collapsing beside her. Their bodies smoked, marked with runes that were still burning. Calith's spirit, the real Calith, appeared beside them, no longer possessed, no longer angry, just sad. "You changed everything," she whispered. "You saved me," Lyra replied. "You saved everyone." Calith's hand touched her cheek, and then she vanished, finally at peace. It rained for the first time in months the day they buried him. The skies wept where Lyra could not. She stood alone at the cliff's edge, overlooking the ruins of the Vale. The song was gone from her voice, not silent, just resting, sleeping deep in her bones. She pressed a crystal to her lips, the last remnant of the pact. It still hummed faintly. Riven's soul, perhaps, or maybe just memory. But when she closed her eyes, she heard him. "I'd rather die loving you than live fearing fate." The new order asked her to return, to help rebuild, to lead. She said no. She had seen too much, felt too deeply. For now, she walked the edges of magic, watching, listening, protecting the thin lines between worlds. She was no longer a siren, no longer a vessel. She was the song itself. And when the wind shifted just right, she sang. For Calith, for Riven, for herself, a lullaby, a war cry, a promise. Because even when the gods fall silent, the heart remembers.